Alluded to in one of my earlier posts, I think that there's a lot of really fun similarities that you can name off of the two most recent cartoons for both Spider-Man and Batman, Cape Crusader and Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, for those of you who are counting. Let me explain. When you really get down to it, both shows are supposed to be spiritual successors to two very prominent versions of the characters that they adapt, while at the same time also trying to be year one reinventions of their typical characters, both in aesthetics and also just character wise as well. Batman Cape Crusader, starting off, for example, is supposed to be a spiritual successor to Batman the Animated Series, with, in fact, Bruce Timm, one of the main heads of that show, returning to write multiple episodes of Cape Crusader, along with Matt Reeves, who, of course, worked on Robert Pattinson's The Batman in 2022, and, of course, J.J. Abrams. Crazy-ass lineup. Well, the art direction of Batman the Animated Series goes for a very kind of timeless early like 40s gothic aesthetic. Cape Crusader also decides to go in a different direction, reflecting more so the original origins of the character as a pulp hero around the 1940s. As you can see, it's supposed to reflect a early Batman who doesn't have a lot of the fancy gadgets that we have, and is much more focused on being, well, a detective, which with a design that is very simplistic compared to the Batman designs that we have before. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is much the same way. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man also follows the exact same design philosophy. Leonardo Romero, a comic book artist and lead character designer of the show, please check out his work. It's really fire, especially for Birds of Prey 2023 from Kelly Thompson. You can see that a lot of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is trying to replicate the same Steve Ditko, Stan Lee Spider-Man comics from the early 60s. You can see a lot in the art style and also various references that they make through the title and title sequences of each episode of the show. MCU Spider-Man, we can't forget, is also supposed to call a lot of similarities to the MCU variant of the character, with the main differences of it being the fact that it's much more focused on his universe, while at the same time, instead of meeting up with Tony Stark, this version of Peter meets up with Norman Osborn, and we have to see a lot more of his origin story play out in real time. Well, aesthetically, these shows try to be very similar to their comic book counterparts early years. The main difference is how each show manages to try and shake things up a little bit. Batman Cape Crusader, for example, focuses on a far more diverse cast of characters, while at the same time also having a lot of villains get key differences in their origin stories. And if we are to at least keep what they're going to maybe do, it seems like we're going to have a solo Batman for this outing of the character as well. So no Robins, as far as we can tell. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man also decides to be a bit of a modernization, having a far more race-bent and diverse cast of characters overall, while at the same time switching up a lot of Peter's overall characterization and his origin story to fit what they want to see for the character. Hell, even a major plot point by the end of both series is the fact that one friend from both Batman and Peter's overall friend group ends up becoming one of their iconic villains, with Harvey obviously becoming Two-Face, and of course, Peter's best friend, Lonnie, ending up becoming Tombstone, or the race is fated to become Tombstone in another season. Overall, though, if you put a gun to my head, I'm not exactly the greatest fan of both shows. Batman Cape Crusader, in my opinion, is a very interesting take on Batman's early years, but I am a bit sick of a year one Batman who has to learn the power of friendship over and over and over again. And I also do feel as though 10 episodes is just not enough time for them to tell every story that they wanted to tell, which ends up making this version of Batman falling a bit flat for me, especially since he doesn't really have to struggle from a physical or mental perspective, much like Robert Pattinson's version of the character, who is also an early Batman, mind you, that is within the public consciousness. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is a show I also have a lot of problems with, don't get me wrong. Main thing is that I'm kind of sick of a teenage Peter Parker, something that I would explain probably in a later post. But not only that too, I do find as though the show also has Peter's characterization also not being my favorite, since this version of Peter is incredibly nice and a bit too much of a good role model, in my opinion. Especially when I find a lot of his other characters to be a bit more interesting. And visually speaking, too, while I do like the stylized 3D, I definitely feel like it needed a bit more time to cook in the oven overall. Still, though, I would put Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man above, mainly just because it's more of a breath of fresh air to have a pretty decent Spider-Man cartoon that can at least rival Spectacular, given the fact that Ultimate and Spider-Man 2017 I disliked even more. With Batman, I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's been a while since we had a Batman show, literally like about 11 years if you do the math, but also, too, there has not really been a miss when it comes to a Batman cartoon, in my opinion. Still, though, tell me your thoughts on both shows and let me know what other similarities that you can find. I would love to hear your opinions on this, and I hope you do have a lovely rest of the day. Let's get a conversation going.